Okay, friend, this is the variables and operators session. What I want to say in this video is that it's very important for you to understand data type, and data type understanding will define how quickly and how well you will learn Python. So you want to pay uh, a lot of attention to the data type module because you don't want to be frustrated and go too fast. So let's start with assignment statement. Um, so I'm going to define two variables. Okay, so I will have x, which is 10, and y, which is 8. Okay, so when I run these two, I already show you in how to install Python, how to run a script, a Python script. So you can see in the shell or the command prompts how it's executed. So, and then I'm gonna also run Python equals 8. So what this is doing really, I'm passing a value into a variable. So I want to pass the value 10 into variable x, and I want to pass value 8 into variable y. And going forward, I can do any type of operation that I want. I can add, I can subtract, I can divide, and I can multiply, or I can even do more than that. So this means what? That if I go to the command prompt and I want to know what x is, x give me 10 and y give me 8. So that's pretty much what it is. Okay, so it's just like you naming a variable. You naming 10 as x and you naming y as 8. It's pretty simple. You also have this type of state assignments statement where you have z, for example, plus equals 3. So what this means is you this is another way of writing z equals z plus 3. And you're going to see that a lot when we get to the loops. And in loops, you may have to write a script where you're going to have to, for every iteration, you're going to have to add a specific value, or you're going to have to subtract a specific value. Okay. Um, you can use any other value. So I haven't defined z, but this is mostly I'm just calling z any number, right? So any number added to 3. For the first iteration, if it's 0, you're gonna have 0 plus 3. If it's 1, you're gonna have 1 plus 3, and so on and so forth. So so that's for that. Now, we must be cautious when naming variables, and let me tell you how. The first thing you need to be aware of is that you cannot name a variable with space. So if I say my age equals 20, for example, it's not going to work. The reason why is that you have a space. So if I run this script, you're going to have a syntax error, because and this is where you know that Python is telling you, hey, I'm seeing your space and I'm not understanding what you're trying to do. But uh, usually how you want to do it is you want to put either uh, an underscore, like my age, right? In which case it's gonna work. Or you wanna capitalize every word. So my and then age. So age will have to be capitalized with letter A. So it is still gonna work. So these are the um, two type of naming convention um, when it comes to naming variables. And then another thing you want to keep in mind is that if you want to do, it's really usually not recommended to put a number before, uh, in front of the name of the variable, because it's not gonna work either. This is one of the things that you need to pay attention to. So you can see that it's becoming red. It's a way for you to know that this is not working. And if it's even Python is even reading this as an integer, which doesn't make sense. Okay, so this is also um, something you want to pay attention to. Now, Python has building words, and some of the building words can be uh, def. def is used for to define a function. If you use that, it's definitely not recommended because Python has ways of Python will get confused and say, "Oh, I'm already using this as a building word." A building word is um, a building word is a word already used in the Python system to to build things or to create things. So def is definitely not useful, and there are many other built-in statement that you want to avoid, and you will know it if you write something. So another uh, another example is int. You cannot call variable int is definitely not because this is already in color, in integer color. It may or it may not work, but or this int is work, but it's still not. And this is the thing, it's still not recommended because int is already used to define the type of a variable. So you definitely don't want to call it this way because even though it's working. All right, so um, we can conduct multiple state assignment statement at the same time. Let me tell you how. So you remember we talk about x equals 10 and y equals 8. We can another way to do it is write x comma y equals 10 comma 8. So what Python is going to do is Python is going to look at it and assign 10 to x and y to 8. So if I run this, okay. Let's change because we already know that x was 8 and y was x was 10 and y was 8. So let me change that to 10 and 80 and see what happens. So if I call x, I'm gonna have 100, and if I call y, I'm gonna have 80. So that's a cool way to save space, to save lines of codes, you know. Or if you have multiple small variable that you want to assign, you can just put all of them together. It can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even up to 10. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so let's get to a small operation because it's also about operators. So I can compute any addition, right? If I compute x plus y, I should be able to have 180. I can compute x minus y, um, and that will give me the difference. Okay, I can do a multiplication, which is the star sign, which gives you 8,000. Okay, and let's talk now about order of operation. As you may know, order of operation in algebra usually take care of multiplication and division within parentheses before you add or subtract, correct? Well, it's the same thing with Python. So if I say, if I define z to be 2, for example, okay, um, I can ask Python to give me the result, in which case I'm going to use the print statement, okay? And print is an example of building name that you definitely don't want to use, right? Because it's colorful here, and that's why I love Visual Studio Code because um, you can tell, you can quickly and easily debug just by the color of the text that you put in. Okay, so let's keep going. So if I want to do x plus y times z. In regular math, order of operation, what you will have to do is compute first. When you have to calculate, you have to calculate first the product between y and z, correct? And not the product between, and not the addition between x and y, and then multiply the result by z. That's wrong. So you definitely first want to multiply, okay, x by z, and then add the result to, I mean, y by z, sorry, and then add the result to x. So really, what it should give you is uh, 80 times 2, which is what, 160, and when you add 100, that gives you 260. So let's run this. You can just right click, right? You don't have to select first. No, I have not named z, so let me name z, or let me highlight all this, and it's gonna do the job for me. So that's 260. So what Python did, Python multiply y by z and then add the result to x. Okay. So if you don't want to get confused, if you if you do want to add x and y first, in real math, what you want to do is just put this in parentheses, okay, and before applying the multiplication, and it's gonna work. But you're definitely gonna have another results, okay? So here you multiply, you're adding 10 to 80 first, which is 180, to which you multiply to have 360. So that's pretty what it is. Now, another thing that you need to know is that you can exponentiate by using the double star. Okay, so y to the power 2, um, that's how you do it, and that gives you 6,400. Now, you this is for the exponentiation. You definitely don't want to confuse that with this sign. You definitely don't want to confuse this with this sign, which is the caret operator, which could produce, quite honestly, real results. Okay, the caret operator can produce real results. So I personally don't quite know what it's supposed to do, but it's called a it has a weird name that I cannot uh, recall. It's a bitwise operator. I'm not too sure, but you definitely don't want to use um, this sign when you exponentiate, but you want to use the double star instead. And I should have put that here. This is what you want to use. Uh, Now let's move on and talk now about division. You can divide y by z, and that's for a slash, and that gives you 40.0. We're gonna talk more about the 40.0 in another session, and that has to do with integers and operators and numbers and operators. There is another operator that's called uh, modular, um, which is y uh, percent z, which gives you uh, the remainder of a division, and that's called modular, right? So when you divide, when you're trying to divide. Oh, let's do this. Let's divide 100 by 80. So that would be x. Or maybe this is good enough. I mean, 80 we're dividing 80 by 2, correct? So that's the modulo. What's the remainder for this? This should be 0 because there's no remainder here. And then the integer division, which is uh, y double slash z. So say, for instance, you want, let me define my y. I want my y to be 5, okay? And my z to be I will keep my z. Okay, so let me keep my z as is. So if I want my y to be 5, my z to be 2, I'm gonna have 2.5, correct? So what Python is gonna do is Python is going to give you an integer division. Instead of 2.5, Python is going to give you 2, which is an integer. So you definitely, depending on what you want to do, right? So you definitely want to see what kind of operation you want to do. That's all I have. That's all I have for today. Um, we just cover variables and operator, and I will see you for the next video. Thank you.